Which I did. When I studied in Nicaragua, I did the same thing. I studied psychology, theology, Spanish.
Theology.
Yeah, I have 2 degrees in theology. So,
Are you religious?
I've been like born and raised a Catholic, so, which I think in Russia they still have people that practice Catholicism.
Not really much. Like we have Pravoslavia, to call it like another path of Christianity that is really popular, especially among people who live in villages.
Mhm.
And like there is, I guess, a graphic that shows like if you don't have an education, if your income is low, and so on and so forth.
Mhm.
There are all like the signs that you might be really religious because it's like the only thing that can help you to deal with your life if you have such problems. So
Right. Yeah.
it's kind of a business. Like they sell you hope.
Oh, right. Yeah. Well, I think up until 1989, you couldn't have any religion in the Soviet Union, I guess, the former Soviet Union. I don't think you were allowed to have religious stuff.
But it came back like in the 90s, I guess.
Right. Yeah. So different than China that has like state sanctioned religions. They have more like what country was that? I've been to Medjugorje, Yugoslavia, so like Bosnia, Herzegovina, but it's still far away from Russia.
But it is closer than China.
Mm-hmm. So it's similar there too. They kind of have the same breakdown. Okay, what PowerPoint were we on? I feel like we were. Is abortion legal in Russia?
Yes.
Is it really?
It is, but I'm quite frightened because in the nearest countries like Slovenia or Slovakia, somewhere there, it was prohibited like half a year ago, like
Mhm.
not, it was recently, and I was really terrified, like, who will be next?
Right, sure. Yeah. Yeah, so that's I feel like that was one of the last slides we did, and
Yeah, we
then,
talked a lot about like being professional with these kind of things, like you have your own thoughts about it, but
yes.
you must not convince everybody to think.
Right, yeah, we still,
That's a great problem in Russia because if you want to take an abortion, you have to go to a psychologist.
okay.
And mainly his purpose, they have like a methodic, and there is written that you should make them to save the baby. It is like, I think that it is like a government problem.
Like adoption or something? Do they put it up for
Not
adoption?
like you must not do an abortion,
Okay.
so the government will have a lot of children. Like it is kind of a politics.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
So
Because of the population.
I think that it breaks one of the main rules not to like give one.
Right, right. Yeah, there's some countries. I do like getting into the genetics. This is just like a real fast breakdown of.
Look at this.
I know, I'm trying to see.
94% of people believe company culture is important to an organization's success.
So this is more about the genogram. And this is actually software you can use, but I tell most people to draw it themselves because the software makes it take too long, I think. If you drew these, it wouldn't be that much a problem. And then this guy uses Star Wars as his like.
Oh my, they have a great family there.
Right, yeah. So it's complicated to figure out.
What is a genogram? A genogram is a special type of family tree. A family tree will simply display ancestry information. However, a genogram will display additional information about the relationships of the individuals. Genograms are drawn using standardized symbols to help the viewer understand the relationships. The basic family symbols include a square for a male and a circle for a female. Genograms also include special symbols to indicate if children are twins or if a child is a biological child or adopted, in case that information is helpful. Genograms also may include information about the actual emotional relationships. There are symbols to indicate a wide.
So this is a good example. I was saying you could get as complicated as you wanted. You don't have to do this, but again, if you are working with a client as a social worker, it does help to have this information because you can be like, oh, you always fought with your brother. That's why he's not a resource to call when you are in trouble or in pain or whatever. So that's what
It's
that's.
easy to keep in mind if you have like this kind of things.
Yeah. And this one, yeah, he kind of breaks it down the quickest. There are longer ones, but this guy explains it in 2 minutes, which is actually kind of nice.
Ranging from friendship to hate. Genograms may also be used for medical and genetic analysis by simply tagging individuals with particular traits. Let's look at an example that demonstrates this. We will use Star Wars and the Skywalker family as an example. Let's start by looking at Padme's family. Her father Rui, represented by a square, mother Jabal, represented by a circle. She also has an older sister named Sola. We know she's older because she is to the left. Let's get a bigger picture. We can see that Padme is in love with Anakin Skywalker, who is the son of Shmi Skywalker and the Force.
Yeah, so the Force is kind of like the Holy Spirit. If you did like a Christian tradition, the Force is like the Holy Spirit.
Anakin and Padme have twins, Luke and Leia. However, Anakin does not know this and does not know about Leia. Luke is adopted by Owen Lars and Barry Whiteson. Owen turns out to be the son of Clea Lars, who married Anakin's mother after Owen's mother died.
So it's kind of complicated if you don't watch Star Wars, and then there's been like 6 new movies. I've only watched the first 3.
One person made me to watch all of them,
Okay.
and now I have to know something.
Right. So, it is interesting. He shows how complicated it can be that way.
On the other hand, Leia is adopted by Bail Presser Organa and Brea until she takes the Organa family name. Luke has a close violence relationship with his father. They fight every time they see each other.
So these are the only 2 that I remember. Hello, how are you? Good. I found a video that helps kind of break down the genogram. I know it's not due until midnight, but
I sure was gonna ask, cause like I kind of got all that information, but I don't know, just kind of like still confused.
right. Okay. Yeah, we can sort that. This is just like literally only 30 seconds left, but you kind of.
Luke is friends with Han Solo, who marries Leia, and have a child named Ben. Anakin, Luke, Leia, and Ben are strong carriers of midichlorians. We can see a pattern from which we could begin to theorize that this is a hereditary trait. As you can see, a genogram can provide a lot of information, and this is just the beginning. If you want to find out more information about genograms, follow the links in the description.
All right, I want to start over just because it's 2 minutes, but
What
you guys
is a
do
genogram?
3
A
generations.
genogram is a special type of family tree. A family tree will simply display ancestry information. However, a genogram will display additional information about the relationships of the individuals. Genograms are drawn using standardized symbols that help the viewer understand the relationships. The basic family symbols include a square for a male and a circle for a female. Genograms also include special symbols to indicate if children are twins or if a child is a biological child or adopted, in case that information is helpful. Genograms also may include information about the actual emotional relationships. There are symbols to indicate a wide range of emotions ranging from friendship to hate. Genograms may also be used for medical and genetic analysis by simply tagging individuals with particular traits. Let's look at an example that demonstrates this. We will use Star Wars and the Skywalker family as an example. Let's start by looking at Padme's family. Her father Rui, represented by a square, mother Jabal, represented by a circle. She also has an older sister named Sola. We know she's older because she is to the left. Let's get a bigger picture. We can see that Padme is in love with Anakin Skywalker, who is the son of Shmi Skywalker and the Force. Anakin and Padme have twins, Luke and Leia. However, Anakin does not know this and does not know about Leia.
So just because I'm not great with Star Wars, I'm not going to let this go too much further. But like basically, you'll have like your mom and your dad, grandma and grandpa on one side, grandma and grandpa on the other side. And then if you're also going to add in your siblings or if they have kids. That could be like your third
Luke is
generation.
adopted by Colic.
What questions did you guys have for it?
Like the descriptions that you want.
Okay, now this is also a good breakdown as this guy showed like, yeah, if you have a good relationship with your brother or sister, you can add that in. If there was alcoholism in the family, say it was an uncle, you make up any symbol you want. So just like showing the mental health disorders, showing the maybe even education level, like if mom or dad finished college or high school or whatever level that they had finished, if they also had, if there's a death in the family, if it's from, say, cancer, that helps show genetics. If it's from smoking or lung cancer, that's another thing to keep in mind, like addiction. This also gives you other symbols if it helps. So let's see if I can.
The most
I
successful investors
love
all
these
show
commercials sometimes. They're so strange.
Welcome to the Genogram Instructions video. I've designed this video to help you understand a little bit more about this project and what you are to do in completing your genogram. In beginning your project, it's important to know that this assignment is like a family tree, but it will hold much more information than just a simple family tree.
So here's good details, like if you do use the years, the birth, I'll try to make it bigger because I can barely see it. Birth and then death, marriage, if there is a separation or a divorce, even abortion or miscarriage. So those are some details, like I guess you were asking. Obviously, all of this stuff will be kept confidential. Like I'm not going to share this with anybody else. So I honor the counselor and social worker confidentiality, where we're not going to show anybody. The family dynamic. So if there is closeness between you and a brother or even another relative, distance or hostility, even a family cutoff, include alcohol and drug issues, or physical or mental health issues. So that's like the kidney, liver disease, heart disease, lung cancer, or even mental health could be bipolar or addictions, really. You could even throw, the tracking stuff that's important. Education, religion, and I really do leave it open for you guys. And I want you to keep in mind, if you're working with a client, say you're a social worker, you want to help them see themselves and whatever may have affected them, the way they grow up. This is why we do it. These are all the things that kind of are formative. Like as you grow up, they form your personality, they form who you are. If there's domestic violence, you may easily become domestically violent yourself. If you grow up with alcoholism, you may have the genetics to be alcoholic yourself. And then also even bipolar has a genetic connection. So that's why you show all of these things. It even has education, race, traveling, race, ethnicity, if family is multicultural. You can use a computer program like they do have. I think it's easier to draw, but if it's easier for you to use a program, they certainly have tons of those on the internet. They'll have like different symbols. So you can have fun with it. It's a very common thing used in social work. So people use programs. I'm okay if you draw it, so it's totally up to you. And then the key, so describing like male, female, divorce, separation, whatever symbols you use. So like kind of a key, and then snapping a picture of it. So this one may help give you examples of like.
It's also been X'd out because he died, and that is also indicated by his name, the year of his death. As you can see here, Hank and Susan had a son named John who was born in 1947. You can tell that John got married in 1977 to Sarah, but prior to that, he had
a marriage. So born in that year, married, and who he's married to.
With a woman named Julie, and that resulted in a miscarriage in 1965. Julie, after that relationship, began to live a homosexual lifestyle, which is indicated by the triangle within the circle. John and Sarah had a son, John Jr., born in 1981.
So are you catching what they said here? He had a relationship first with her in 65 when he was like 18, but she chose a different partner, and then they later on got married in like, it looks like 1977, which is when he was like 32.
Who married Allison, who was born in 83. They moved in together in 2001 and were married in 2006, and their twin girls were born in 2001. You can also tell that the twins were not identical due to the lack of a bar between them. And you can see some of those other marks on the genogram information that's listed in your course resources section.
So I'm okay if you don't get that detailed, but it's also great if you do get that detailed, depending on how much you want to learn for yourself and to get out of working with your clients in the future.
In this next section, you can now see that there was a daughter, Bonnie, who was born into Hank and Susan in 1954. She's younger than John, so she goes further down the line. And she has had 3 relationships, one with a man named James, who was also born in 1954. And there was a baby boy born in 1969 who was adopted out. So you can tell by the dates that James and Bonnie were 15 when this baby was born. And the question mark indicates that there's no other information about that child. In 1982, Bonnie married Jim and divorced in 1988. During that time, they had Matt in 1984. The red square indicates that Matt is the subject who is drawing this genogram, or about whom the genogram is.
So when you draw yourself, that's kind of how you highlight yourself, is kind of what she's saying. So just put something that, like, highlighter, a star, something that we know that you're the one who drew it.
Is concerning. Matt married Christy in 2007, and they had a little boy named Sam, born in 2009. Bonnie and Jim divorced in 88. She remarried Alan in 1991, and they had a son in 94 named Jason, who committed suicide in 2000, so he was 16. Now the shading and the other line.
I think her math is off there, because that looks like he was 6 years old when he committed suicide. I don't know. Anyway.
Lines here indicate mental health, physical health, or drug and alcohol problems. The bars midsection with the lower half of the circle or square shaded indicates a drug or alcohol problem. The vertical line, as seen in Bonnie's circle with the right side shaded, indicates a mental health or a physical health issue. What this starts to allow us to
So
do,
I think that's what she's saying, is mental health, physical health, and that was like alcoholism.
is see patterns in the family. You can see that Bonnie's brother had drug and alcohol problems. Her second husband had drug or alcohol problems. Her nephew had drug and alcohol problems, and so did her son. You can also see that in 2000, Jason committed suicide, and Alan and Bonnie divorced in 2001. In this section, you can see the third child to Susan and Hank have been added. Rachel was born in 1958, and you can see that I've dropped her down lower than the other children to make room for her family. You can see how I've done this. It still looks neat, even though it's beginning to look crowded. You can still tell who everybody is and who they're attached to. So it's okay to be creative with how you structure this to make plenty of room on your paper for them, but making sure that it's very clear who people are and where they go on the genogram. So we drop Rachel down, and you can see 4 relationships here, and it's very important for this to be chronological. So you can see that her first, second, and third husband, and then her 4th relationship are in order as they would have been chronologically. Same goes for John, Bonnie, and Rachel. The children are all in chronological order as well. And their children should all be underneath as well. It's very easy to look at the genogram briefly and understand what you're looking at, where people are in reference to each other. So here you can see that Rachel, like her sister Bonnie, has some mental health problems. her first husband, Jack, also had some mental health problems. They had 3 children together. They were married in 78 and had Tanya, Silas, and Jake, born in 80, 81, and 83. Now, Silas, you can see that his bar looks a little bit different from everyone else's. That indicates an adoption. And each of the double slash lines indicate divorces in all of these situations. So Jack and Rachel divorced in 2002. She remarried John in 2002. That's the type of thing that probably.
So she had a lot of relationships. That's kind of what they're getting at. She was like, first date, married him, got married a couple more times after that, and then in a new relationship. So I don't know if that's starting to answer some of your questions
It
there.
is, it definitely is.
Okay.
Because like I actually I visited my grandma this weekend. So I was like, oh, perfect.
Yeah.
Homework.
Yeah. Yeah. Some people will do like the phone call or whatever's easiest. And even in social work, the past year, I had to do an assessment over the telephone. Yes. I guess it was Wednesday. So last week. And it's a lot of information to get. And you can help them draw this for them, or have them draw it themselves. But ideally, the important thing is you understand the information you're getting from your client. Yes.
Okay, not to have names and dates in the framework.
Names, yeah. I'd say at least try to find some way to show their ages, so you at least could get the generation they're from.
Generation is like
20 years or so. I guess like, I see what you're saying. It's a lot of detailed information that way. For you guys, yeah, I want you to learn how to do this. If you don't have it perfect, it's okay. I just want you to take a shot at 3 generations. You're saying for yourself, you don't know when your like grandparents and aunts and uncles are born and stuff like that. That's fine. That's okay. You could do a rough guess, or you could just, it kind of helps to, because with like a mental illness like schizophrenia, that can be early onset at like 18 or 20. So it's good to know that type of stuff. If you are helping a client, again, for you guys to learn it, it's not going to be the end of the world if you don't. I just want you to try to do your best to include everything. And I know it can be a lot because I have 25 cousins on one side, and I think 17 cousins on another side. So it's like a lot. If I was to cover like my mom and her 4 brothers and 3 sisters, my dad and his 4 sisters and 1 brother, it can become overwhelming. So don't overwhelm yourself, but get the general idea and know how to do this, because at some point, you guys may be doing this with a client, and just understanding, you can get so super duper detailed, and at least getting there to be of good service with the people you're working with. Yeah, sure.
So for last week's class,
Uh-huh.
I tried to view it online, but I couldn't. Am I subscribed to the right channel, or I'm not sure?
It could also be me. If you're trying to watch it live, I may have. Sometimes my channels get shut down because I'll show a film. Like I showed The Line. I didn't notice that they shut down that video. And when that happens, I may just like send you guys the video to watch it on your own. So I do have a few channels. So if you were trying to watch it live, that could have been a problem. But usually after class, I'll send it out. So you might just have to go into announcements and click. Was it Thursday that you tried to watch it? Okay.
Yeah.
So it's probably up there for Thursday.
Okay.
So you can like watch it anytime now. That's why I do like YouTube Live, because like it saves all of them. But you're right. I have like 5 channels, like John Trouth at Miami University. I have Dr. Trouth at Central State University. I have just Jonathan Trouth, and that's because I get channels shut down all the time because of copyrighted, or
That's not fair.
I'm not making money off it, but yeah, if you use it for educational purposes, usually it's when I show the movie Paper Tigers, or what else? There's a lot of clips that like if you show it, even if I'll show a YouTube in the middle of class, they'll give me options. Like I can cut that part out, or I can shut down the whole thing, or you get like a strike on your channel and they close you because like they, for whatever reason. So it should be there though for you. And luckily Thursday wasn't very long. I think we made it a quick enough class that, you're okay. And then, if you comment in the section, it should be, I should get like a notification, like if you ask a question in there. I don't think any of them, it's called Dr. Trouth Central State Channel now.
Make sure.
Right, yeah, because I may have started out with, one of my channels was blocked until like this month, so it might have just opened back up again. And it's like my go-to, because I always go into it for, so I did change this view so I can actually see what's going on here. Oh, that's weird. That does not, So anybody here have like babies though that are like in your family that
And what age is it a baby, not a toddler? I'm not sure.
That is a good question. Let's go with, all right, I'll go through this. Newborn characteristics, like they can focus on objects, they prefer contrasting complex patterns. Like I'll see my baby if I wear a shirt. Oh, I think I left my shirt in that other room. Shoot. Is there a class in there right now? I probably should get it. Hold on. It's right next door. So let me check.
Thank you for coming, because it was like the only person here who were like, oh my, I understand. I figured
I didn't know that in university I can have personal
it. And sometimes it can get a little awkward.
Yeah,
Yeah, so
he's talking to the students.
So if I wear this, they'll like zoom in on the patterns, like and if you have like different, they love the complex patterns, or they might even look at the ceiling because it has those little things instead of just the wall. They also prefer high-pitched sounds like a female voice, which is interesting. So like mom's voice, or I'll try to talk softer. They prefer sweet over salty. That's like anybody, I feel like, though. Prefer sweet over acidic and bitter too. So sugar, we love sugar. Or stevia. I try to make mine stevia because you don't put on all the pounds with stevia. You can grow. It's a natural herb and it's 300 times sweeter than sugar. But they can also imitate your facial expression, like sticking out your tongue. So have you guys seen the still face experiment ever before? It's an interesting, it's kind of sad.
I had read somewhere, oh, that's sad. Like, they're not making any facial expressions.
Well, they'll break it down. Luckily, it's only also a few minutes. And she did it. So a lot of people do it with their kids and even with dad doing it. So here we go.
Babies this young are extremely responsive to the emotions and the reactivity and the social interaction that they get from the world around them. This is something that we started studying 30, 40 years ago, when people didn't think that infants could engage in social interaction. And the still face experiment, what the mother did was she sits down and she's playing with her baby who's about a year of age. And she gives a greeting to the baby gives a greeting back to her. This baby starts pointing at different places in the world and the mother trying to engage her and play with her. They're working to coordinate their emotions, their intentions, what they want to do in the world. And that's really what the baby is used to. And then we ask the mother to not respond to the baby. The baby very quickly picks up on this. And then she uses all of her abilities to try and get the mother back. She smiles at the mother. She points because she's used to the mother looking where she points. The baby puts both hands up in front of her and says, "What's happening here?" She makes that screechy sound at the mother, like come on, why aren't we doing this? Even in this 2 minutes, when they don't get the normal reaction, they react with negative emotions. They turn away. They feel the stress of it. They lose control of their posture because of the stress that they're experiencing.
So this is also a good example for the heroin epidemic, where if there is mom or dad using in the home and say they shoot up and like just pass out for a while, the baby's brain is loaded up with stress and cortisol, like immediately within 2 minutes, like even if you drink too much and just pass out, you're supposed to be watching the baby. And, sometimes they're like, oh, you don't remember anything until you're 3 years old. Like babies are fine, they'll get over it. And the research is showing that they actually get affected by this and for life can also have implications from it. So that was kind of the point of this study.
I'm here. And what are you doing? Oh, yes. Oh, what a good girl.
It's a little like the good, the bad, and the ugly. The good is that normal stuff that goes on that we all do with our kids. The bad is when something bad happens, but the infant can overcome it. After all, when you stop the still face, the mother and the baby start to play again. The ugly is when you don't give the child any chance to get back to the good. There's no reparation, and they're stuck in that really ugly situation.
So there's another one I was actually going to show probably. Oh, great. I already skipped. Probably more Thursday. There's a lot of detail on the science of neglect in general.
Neglect in when you don't take your child back. What does
Yeah, maybe you have them sitting in the crib for 3 hours until you feed them. You keep them alive, but you're not, playing with them, engaging their brain, as there's so many synapses. Like their brain development is incredible that first year and a half. They even talk about orphanages where like they're overwhelmed and they only have 2 staff members caring for 50 babies. So like you got to go like one by one, but like they're all kind of breaking down, like immediately. And this is what the chapter is getting into. The babies, even in utero, they're saying now, like mom's stress is passed into the baby. So like if you're super stressed in a very dangerous environment or whatever, that is passed into the baby right at birth. So this talks about attitudes, emotions, and regulation. So we thought our baby had colic this is if they cry for like 3 hours or longer. So ours wasn't necessarily 3 hours, but it felt like it. Like when you have a baby crying because they got gas or indigestion, you do everything you can to stop it. So this is prolonged bouts of crying. The late afternoon, evening lasts for at least 2 weeks at 4 months of age, and then peaking around 6 weeks. And to diagnose it, like as a social worker, you do the rule of 3. So colic, an otherwise healthy, well-nourished baby's crying occurs for more than 3 hours per day for more than 3 weeks 3 days per week, and then more than 3 weeks in a row. So also some organic causes could just be like constipation, as they've got like a backup. And so like stuff, you always want stuff moving on a baby. You want like 6 diapers pooped in a day, peed and pooped in like 9 diapers a day. If it is lactose intolerance, you may have to like switch. If you're breastfeeding, you switch to like rice milk or almond milk, and then you also have like lactose-free formulas. It could be meningitis and even abuse. So like the baby's crying because it's been abused. Primarily the causes of colic are gastrointestinal, psychosocial, or neurodevelopmental. So those are some of the things that do come up. I guess the first year they consider it a baby. I don't know if you're a toddler till you're 1 year of age. I'll have to look that up again, but these are all the states they go through. Most of them sleep like forever. So you got quiet alert, active alert, crying state, drowsiness state. You'll see him like almost look like just like even like a man or woman does when you're tired. What's that? Yeah, it could be. Then also quiet sleep and active sleep. Actually, the other night, my wife was putting, my daughter is 14 months, my son is 3 months. He was crying so bad, and I knew it was probably because he was hungry. I was kind of like holding him until she could get back to him, and she is still like pumping and breastfeeding. But the night before, I was kind of carrying him out in a room that was close to the room she puts the other one to sleep in. And she said she got the other one to sleep and was moving her to her crib to set her down. And then the boy starts crying and wakes her up. So we have another hour of both of them awake. So this time, even though I knew he was hungry, I like kept him in this back room. There's like a sliding door, and I'm just like holding him. He cried for like 15 or 20 minutes. It's just hard to deal with. You know what I mean? It's like you don't want to hear anybody cry. But she's like, he was so hungry. And she's like, it's okay, but he was so hungry. And I'm like, I know, but I knew if he was out there and I made a bottle and he was screaming, he would have woken her up and we'd have another hour of this going on. So that's why most people space their babies 2 or 3 years apart, so you don't have crap like that happen. So that's normal development. I'm an old man, so we had babies fast. My wife's geriatric pregnancy, so we had them both in 11 months. A year and a half after we got married, we had 2 kids. That's kind of like our. I will show this now because I'm sure there's other videos I can pull up. But this is another science of neglect, and this really breaks down development.
Everyone in a community has a vested interest in everyone else's children, because everyone else's children determine the next adult population that makes for a successful society. Built into our biology is the need to have responsive interactions with adults.
Neglect for children is when they don't get what the brain is expecting to get, what the child is expecting to get, what we are biologically prepared and waiting for, which is input from those around us.
It's this back and forth serve and return interaction that literally shapes the architecture of the brain.
Serve and return begins when a child looks at something or observes something, makes an utterance, and that represents the serve. And return is when the parent notices the child doing these things and responds to the child.
Under conditions where serve and return is broken, you literally are pulling away what is the essential ingredient of the development of human brain architecture.
There was a really compelling series of experiments where they started by videotaping the mother and the baby engaging in cooing and smiling. And then they asked the mother to basically put on a blank face and not respond.
So you guys
when a baby is not attended to, that is a sign of danger to the baby biologically. So the stress systems become activated.
I guess he's saying biologically because that could mean
She's dead.
right, like they can't be fed, they can't have their source of food, so they got to start screaming and hope there's another human that's going to come and pick them up and take care of them, so to speak.
It is constantly bathed in stress hormones, not this up and down that comes with normal development. Certain key synapses, the connections between nerves fail to form, and critical regions of the brain. So neglect both fails to provide the stimulation that's needed to develop the basic architecture, and when it's at a certain level, is one of the most potent activators of the stress biology of a young child. So you get a double whammy.
Science points to 4 categories of this spectrum of neglect. The first category would be what's called occasional inattention, where children experience responsiveness most of the time, but occasionally adults don't respond.
There's no harm in that, and in fact, there's probably some benefit. A child can learn to self-soothe and explore the environment
And all of those opportunities build brain architecture.
The second category, scientists would call chronic understimulation, is where on a regular basis, children have less interaction with the adults around them than is needed for healthy development.
Those children typically, when provided with enriched learning opportunities and more typical levels of certain return, will show catch-up.
The third category is what science would call severe neglect in a family where not only are there prolonged periods of inattention and lack of responsiveness, but often also associated with not being fed enough, not being bathed enough, not having basic needs met.
Neglect is a huge problem in the US. Children are much more likely to be neglected than they are to experience any other kind of maltreatment.
We see the child really being at risk for much more substantial kinds of deficits down the road that don't necessarily get easily fixed or ameliorated. This is where we really need to think about more complicated and often more intensive strategies to help undo those effects.
The fourth category, called severe neglect, generally found in institutional settings as a result of children living in kind of warehouse type situation in orphanages.
And it doesn't have to even be as extreme as orphanages. It can be experiences that are regretfully occurring in many, many parts of our country.
Often institutional care in this country is under the euphemistic name of transitional care or temporary care or assessment facilities.
If you think about what institutional or residential care would look like for an infant, where there's somebody new coming onto the shift every 8 hours, it really alters the development of the child's brain architecture and other aspects of the child's development.
We have the potential to change children's developmental trajectories.
Interventions can apply to parents, to foster parents or adoptive parents, child care settings, Head Start settings, and other kinds of settings. And really, what they're about is attuning people to the serve and return process.
Neglecting young children is neglecting the foundations of a healthy next generation. The community pays a huge price later in terms of the problems of the next generation, whether it be educational achievement, economic productivity, good citizenship, the ability to parent the next generation. All of the things that have to do with a healthy, prosperous society.
So that's another just quick, yeah, sure.
There is an interesting fact about orphanage children and they're being neglected. And there's no possibility to rock to sleep everybody of them. So they rock to sleep themselves. So they're rocking every time by themselves, scaring the child. But they still do it even if they're like 9 years old or 11.
Yes.
They have this kind of I don't know how to call it, pattern, how to behave in stress. Even as a grown up, he starts to do this.
Yes.
So we can see this going through all his life.
I have seen and known somebody who was in an orphanage in India growing up, and she must have rocked herself to sleep, and she was adopted here when she was 2, but she still does the rocking thing. And it's just like you said, it's like a self-soothing behavior, and we'll get into that when we get to the older ages, but they call them ACEs. It stands for Adverse Childhood Experiences, and you can actually take a quiz to see how many. Most of us have 1 or 2 ACEs as normal, but when you get 4, 5, 6, and 7, it can go to self-soothing behaviors that are destructive, like eating, too much drinking, alcohol and smoking, and even intravenous drug use. So that's some of the things that we don't want to get to as much. Before then, we'll get into like attachment theory and the things with if you have a secure attachment growing up with your mother or father or whoever is, taking care of you. I may actually show you guys some of these next time, but like rooting, these like natural reflexes that you have as a kid. But do you have any questions for like stuff that, there's so much we can get into during the first 12 months. And, we just, first 9 months in the womb and then the first 3 out of the womb. So it's definitely, a lot to get into. And I want to give chance to let it absorb and whatnot. I know we've been going 45 minutes at this point, but any questions that you may have? Okay, because I want to give a chance for, if you want to add to your genogram or finish or get that turned in. So give you guys a chance for that and maybe make it back to your place before it starts raining again.
So my first class, I thought I was okay. It was
Uh-huh.
as class ended, it just wasn't.
Yes. So, but yeah,